a lot of the time, like your time will just be absorbed and continuously decreased. And then, Sarah, as you alluded to, you're back to back meetings for 6, 7 hours. And what I've often found is that when you're doing all that, there's no time left for the work. It's usually either super early or super evening when you've done all the meetings. So it can be often very hard to have that this detachment and try to not be so stressed all the time. One particular I want to get into, which is quite interesting, is all about kind of distinguishing yourself all around kind of career growth. So even starting with yourself, Sarah. So you've moved from multiple different teams in Workday. You've been there for a good couple of years, and in that period of time, what have you particularly done to distinguish yourself, especially in a kind of a larger organization where it could be quite hard to get more of a further reach to more people in an organization? You're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the thing about a company like Workday. Like, it is very big, but I think as long as you flip it and maybe see that that's an opportunity, and there's 20,000 odd people working for this company, like surely, someone else has a similar interest to me, like, or whatever, or there's someone I can talk to further my career, whatever it might be. But I think sorry, I was just trying to gather my thoughts there. In terms of differentiation, honestly, like Emer, everything she was saying there, just around showing genuine interest, I think is really important, because it is very competitive. Sometimes maybe even getting into a large company, navigating throughout a larger company. And genuine interest in a role goes a long way, and you can't fake that. Like, if I'm helping out with interviewing someone, or I'm genuinely talking to someone about it, it's so interesting to hear what people are genuinely interested in. Even, none of us are passionate about HCM or payroll or finance, like, or unless you're an accountant. But that's what I work in. But I hope that people know me for a lot more than that. And I think in some way just getting your personality across, and being that person that that to hopefully come across, like, I am easy to work with, like, I will support you when we need a bit of help. I think things like that are help you be distinguished. But I was just about to say, now that the office is opening back up, like, literally capitalize on those opportunities to network, to link up with people that potentially have the same interests as you, whether it's like a social outlet through work, or a creative endeavor through work, like the podcasting, or if you want to work on kind of documentation for your team and making that create, like, if you have a creative element and want to help with that, like, small wins like that are the things that get you noticed. Like, you don't think people notice them, but they do. And whether it's just remembering something about someone, I think is really important. Like, when you're just active listening and showing genuine interest, when you're networking with the people that potentially have an opportunity coming up, I think that will help you bounce around more, because it's just more genuine. But you don't have to exhaust yourself doing that either. I think just go for the things that genuinely, like, are interesting to you, because it's so easy in such a big company to be like hearing oh, this person got that role, or oh, that person's doing that thing now, and you have to go at your own pace, but just try and be authentic through that as well.
Of course.
That was helpful.
No, of course, because like with your career, there's so many things you enjoy or don't enjoy. So if you're
Yeah,
working in something in payroll that may not just be interesting to you, as
yeah,
well as finding something that you are interested in and focusing on that area, can prove so much more valuable. So you have, I think it's what's good about that is not just having formal relationships where it's just like
yeah,
up here, here's my wall, here's the
yeah,
wall that we're going to present. It's actually just something a little bit more casual, which is I
yeah.
think that's a good
Connecting
perspective to
with
bring.
others.
Exactly,
Yeah, like, on
exactly.
more than just a workplace basement, I think is
Of
really,
course.
yeah.
Of course, of course. Kira, from your own perspective as well, what do you think has been a bigger area to see kind of distinguishing yourself? So, not just beyond development and delivering actual tasks, has there been other areas you think have proved to be worthy so far?
Yeah, I think a big thing about distinguishing yourself as well is just kind of having the confidence to kind of put yourself forward for things, So if you are just doing your role, but you're not doing anything there's maybe a different area that you do want to know more about, or there is a job and you would love to be part of it. I think it's really important to put yourself forward for things, because if you don't put yourself forward for things, then you may not be asked, you might not get that opportunity. And I think it's just important as well to, as a graduate, you probably have a lot of good ideas. You'll probably be there for a few weeks. You'll learn about different parts of the business and how things work, and you'll probably have lots of ideas that are probably great. But I think going into a new role, you sometimes feel a bit shy or awkward about suggesting new ideas, maybe when you're new. But I think it's so important as a graduate to get your ideas out there, and I think that can really distinguish you as well. Bringing those fresh ideas is probably what you're going to be remembered for. You know, people know you for the person who suggested this, or maybe this process is so much better now the way that it is. So I think getting yourself out there, putting yourself forward for things that you are interested in, and making suggestions when you see fit, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think a common theme there is just having good energy and, interest. Once you actually bring a lot of energy, but you're a bit charismatic about the area, you're not going into thinking that everything is kind of dull and boring. That's the main thesis, and people recognize that. And I think that's what's kind of fantastic. Roisin, from your side, you're very young to get into that entrepreneurship field, and a lot of people wait. Like, a lot of people will say, oh, do a couple of years and then move into it. So you really dived headfirst in. And how has it been for you from kind of distinguishing yourself in that particular area? Because it's not easy when you're at essentially starting from the very bottom, and then you're building up a good portfolio, building up a good client base, and trying to grow a business.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Darren. I actually did have that kind of mindset when I was in college. Like, originally, like, I really thought I would go into industry and learn a lot, because, doing BAS, you have opportunity to go into so many different areas, and kind of gain experience, I suppose, before some people do venture out them by themselves. But honestly, it had a lot to do with kind of the last 2 years kind of changed my mindset, I suppose. Like the pandemic, I suppose it kind of changed perspectives for a lot of people, I think. And even just bring it back, I'm not sure if anyone on this call does practice yoga, but I think from doing that, it provides like a lot of kind of clarity and kind of brings forward what you really kind of want, or kind of thoughts and things like that you maybe, I was kind of during college, like hiding. I was like, oh, look, like I'll do that in a few years. But I think I just said, look, like, it's uncomfortable. I think it was uncomfortable at the start, especially because all my peers were going to work. And I think maybe at the start, that's kind of what my family and friends expected me to do. So I think it was one of the most uncomfortable things I kind of did to initially start off with. But it's been so rewarding. And I think, like, in this kind of space, like, you do have to be like comfortable with being like so uncomfortable all the time. Sure. Like, you do kind of have to be resilient and kind of keep going. But I suppose the way I think it can be overwhelming if you have kind of an endpoint. There's always kind of something you're kind of working towards, but I think kind of doing it gradually, like bit by bit, it's less overwhelming, like you said, like networking and kind of building it from the ground up. Kind of, and bird's eye view, like, it does look kind of intimidating, but I think I kind of did it just progressionally. So I started first off, I loved fashion, so that's why I kind of chose this as like a fashion accessory. So during college, I used to draw, because I'm quite creative. So I was like, how could I kind of put this into a business? So what I did was put my drawings on phone cases. So it kind of gradually was like step by step. And then, like, in the future, like, it'll have other product offerings and things like that. So I think initially, like, it is uncomfortable, but I think I never kind of regretted doing it. So I think kind of step by step, I'm kind of getting there, and I learn more every day. So that's kind of what keeps me kind of going.
That's awesome, because even that, like, mindset and mentality is like, so, like, it actually is quite unique, because people will think they want to go 0 to 100. And something I actually talk about quite a lot as well, even in my podcast, is like, people expect to go, you look at someone else who's successful, wildly successful as a solo entrepreneur or in their career, a managing director or a VP at someone 28, 29. But then to get to those stages is not about trying to jump to what you were alluding to. It's about going, like, 1, 2, 3, working your way up slowly. How did you stay kind of on track, though? This is quite what I kind of want to understand, is like, as you're improving and it's slightly increasing, when your friends are getting these jobs and potentially they were going out when you were at your desk, like what were you particularly doing to try to stay kind of focused? Because often it's those moments whereby you're most vulnerable to actually kind of give up in those particular areas.
Yeah, that it's so true. I think, yeah, all my friends went down a different avenue, and I suppose in ways they can kind of compare their experiences, whereas I know that my experience is a little unique to my friends. So it has been challenging. I think that's like really important to kind of mention, that it's not all kind of positive and like always okay. Like I think there's been a lot of kind of setbacks and things I had to kind of learn about myself. I think a lot of self-talk, I think, and a lot of internal kind of work like I've had to do. I think a lot of things I did do to do that was like kind of read books, listen to podcasts, kind of get kind of perspective, because sometimes it's hard to get perspective and there's no one else kind of around you doing the same thing. So I think it's like a daily mindset I like instill in myself every day. Like when I do yoga and I meditate, like I set myself up every day. Some days are not as good as others, but like it is a challenge to say the least. Like but I think bring it back to like, this is what I want to do. I think I keep bringing it back to that, like the reason for doing this has always kind of given me comfort, even when I feel uncomfortable or something doesn't feel like certain, because I suppose like I didn't even know I would kind of go and do this program like 6 months ago. Like I had a completely different mindset. Like you don't know kind of what's ahead of you, and that can be really, really uncomfortable. So bring it back to the reasons for why I kind of started this really brings me back and like brings me comfort, I think. And I think I'm very lucky to have like really supportive friends and family that, like, although they might understand on a daily basis how I kind of feel compared to, I suppose I find it hard then to kind of relate sometimes to them. They're great listeners. So I'm good to have, I have a good like support system, which has really helped me.
Of course, and I think that like social circle around you is like the most important, of course. So it's good that you have like family and friends around it. Before we get into the Q&A in the last like 10 minutes, I just want to do a quick kind of run around the table around actually like accelerating your career and moving up. So even from your perspective, you were saying there's good growth in Work Vivo and you're hoping to do something similar and continue growing on. What has been something that a big learning lesson you've learned to really kind of improve your career and kind of really take off?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think like I used to have a totally different idea growing up of what, being a hard worker and, what success was. It used to be for me, like to be a hard worker, you had to work like 12 hours in the day to really show that you're adding value to a company. But it's actually not that. I figured out along the way, like within my job and Work Vivo, that it doesn't matter how long you work, as long as you get the job done, and people see the value in the success of a really good project, or the success of something that you're working on. And it goes back to being someone that your employer can trust to get the job done. They don't care how long it takes you to get the job done anymore, because we're all working remotely. But as long as you can do a good job, that success is actually measured through the results of a project. And I found to really, if you want to get a promotion, you need to prove that you've done, really good work. And what I've started to do with my team is every month we actually reflect on the last month and look at how many, tickets we resolved or how many customers we helped. And over time, we can see it's going up and up, which is amazing. And it lets us report back to our leaders and our managers to say, look, we've done a really good job. And then if you do want a promotion, you've got evidence and you can say, look, these projects were a success. And this is the kind of increase in the workload that's going up and up. And that way you can prove that you're doing, an amazing job and you've got the evidence to back it up.
Yeah, completely agree. It's all data driven at this stage. Kira, from your perspective, what do you think?
I think that it's really important. I think for me, I found to be organized. I think that, to make sure that you get the most out of your weeks so that you're doing the best that you can be. It's really important to be organized, because sometimes you might have a day and the day kind of gets away from you and you don't know what happened when. So I think to be organized and to constantly set yourself goals. So have a plan and stick to it. I think that's really helpful for me. And just around as well, I think, you know, when it comes to trying to do well in your career as well, I think just networking is probably one of the really big things. I know we've talked about that a good bit here now today, but just getting yourself out there, making sure that you have made good connections. I think that's a really important thing as well.
Absolutely. I 100% back that. That's one of the reasons why I have a podcast is all around networking. So I can put proof in the actual the evidence of it. Sarah, from your own perspective, so as you've been promoted through Workday, what do you think was the biggest driver in you getting promoted?
I think it's attention to detail. If you want a specific role, if there's something you've your eye on, just like really understanding the job description that's required, understanding the team's needs currently. Why are they hiring someone? And who is the hiring manager? Like there's so many things that sometimes can be overlooked because you get a bit of a deer in the headlights of like, I know I want this, but I don't know where to start. And just like it comes back to organization, but just getting the small little wins right. But yeah, but if it's in your current role and you just want to get promoted in your current role, I think just always asking yourself, where can I add value? And then literally to complement what Roisin was saying, if you get yourself in a good flow, like, you know, you're managing your day, like you're doing things that help you put your mindset into a good position, it will help you bring better energy and get into a better flow with your work. It will ripple effect on everyone around you. And I think that's really noticeable. If you're just trying to progress in your current role, you enjoy your role, that's something you can do yourself, to really benefit those around you. And I always think it gets noticed then, for the most part. So I think those sort of things are definitely helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, because you're filling an actual gap. Usually if there's a knowledge gap or a technical gap, that's where someone comes in where it's the most demand, you know. You're not trying to, you know, oversupply yourself with something generic. So
Yeah.
whether it's an RPA skill, whether if you're working in ops, or if you're working in a product, you know, those specific skills, you're filling a genuine gap, you know. So guys, I want to open up to a Q&A now, but first I want to say thank you for obviously providing your insights. It's no surprise to see you've done really well in your career so far. And yeah, I'll say a massive thank you. So Jeremy, if anyone has any particular questions, that'd be great. Let me just check the message box.
Yeah, so the chat function is available if anyone wants to ask questions. You can find it at the top of the window. It's a little speech bubble that you click on. You can add your comments in there. As we wait, I'd just like to echo what you just said, Darren. Thanks so much to the panel. Thanks to Sarah, Kira, Roisin and Emer. Really fantastic insights, very personal insights as well, which is great to hear. And also thank you to Darren for hosting. Excellent questions. And also, again, as we're waiting, just maybe just say just a few short words about the Athena Swan committee in BIS as well. So this event has been created by the committee. So it's an Equality, Diversity and Inclusion initiative, which the Department of BIS is undertaking. We received the certification in 2019. We're now in the process of reapplying. So this is one of the many initiatives we're doing. And I'd also just like to thank my subcommittee members, Jeremy Hayes, Caroline Manley, and Zanab El Shabib. So thanks to you also. And yeah,
awesome, guys. So if anyone has any more questions, it'd be great. Any in particular? Oh, I think 1 second there. I just closed down the window, would you believe? Sorry.
Yeah. So some and sorry, so Tig is actually the chair of the Athena Swan committee as well. So just a message coming through there. Sorry.
Awesome.
Just like.
Cool, guys. Do you have anything else in particular to say? Any recommendations? Any career advice for young people?
We also just have one question that's come in as well. Just to let you know, Darren, from Isabella.
So Isabella said, do you have any tips on choosing a job offer that correctly values me as a BIS graduate for students not knowing what to expect out in the first real job out of BIS?
I think if what your question means, Isabella, is just kind of making sure you go into a role that you'd be able to use the skills you've learned and acquired through BIS accurately. I think honestly, just making sure if you see a job description that meets what you've maybe learned or built up on, don't be too worried if one or two skills, like that's not something that was covered in the modules, because it is something you can learn. But reaching out to recruiters, like honestly, LinkedIn, like the fact that LinkedIn just exists, like it didn't really exist at all when I was starting, but just reaching out to people and asking questions, I think looks really good as someone who, if you're not sure if a role might suit you or it mightn't like be tailored to the type of skills that you've acquired through your course, I would say definitely reach out and always ask. Like recruiters just live on LinkedIn now, so it's just a great platform to be able to connect with people. But it is 100%, I do understand, like in a lucky way, BIS graduates are well needed. So that would be my recommendation. But if anyone has anything else, I hope I understood it.
Yeah, and even from my own perspective, I think a big thing with, the difference in education and your career is that it'll be difficult to find out what particular area you really, really enjoy. So it's good to get settled on what you're really good at, what sort of enjoyment you have from first, and then you slowly iron out what you don't enjoy, is what I was trying to do for the first couple of years for sure, was figure out what stuff did I not particularly enjoy, and I could find the right alignment. But basis on your question around values, that's what I would try to align to, is what interested me. What I like to do was, kind of smaller startups in particular, and yeah, just kind of those kind of values. Next question here is, at your workplace, how do you notice a gender diversity trend in technology companies in the recent 2 years?
I think on this one, I actually have noticed in our own team, for a while we thought there was something wrong with our job spec. We weren't attracting any males to work in the kind of technical consultant team, and we were quite female heavy, which is like a complete surprise to a lot of people. But I think things have totally changed. There was so many women in technology in my own year in BIS. I feel like it's definitely changed. And sometimes I do jump on calls with customers and they might be surprised to see, a female in a technology role, and they might, think you're on the marketing team or something instead. But like over time, that happens less and less. I think that women are being respected way more in the technology industry. And as I said, we thought there was something wrong with our role, that no lads were applying for it. But we do have one guy on our team now after 2 years. But yeah, no, things are definitely improving. And I think courses like BIS just facilitate people getting those skill set and launching into those type of roles now.
Yeah, that's right. Another question on, will relevant certifications help you in the pursuit of jobs, or having relevant experience and knowledge is sufficient? So Kira, you can maybe pick up this one.
Yeah, I think it depends maybe on the role. So say, for instance, for me, if it was RPA, I think because it's more of a specific thing, then certifications and that would definitely set you apart. But I think you also have to remember, going into a graduate role, is that there is probably not a big expectation that you're going to have loads of certifications or experience. So I think the main thing going into a role really is, if you have relevant work experience or certifications, great. But I think going into a role as your first job, the main thing really is a willing to learn and a passion to learn. So I think that's more important for most roles going into a graduate position, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question saying, what does BIS mean and what makes it different from business or commerce, if I have to pick between them as CEO? So basically, BIS stands for Business Information Systems. And really what it is the information system side of software development, any of the technical element, but it doesn't go down the software engineering route, which is really good. It has a balanced approach between the business element of it. So there's a nice split between 50-50 split. So if you're like me and have very little technical understanding, it's great because I'm much more client facing and chatting on the internet kind of facing, versus the technical side of it, which I know some other people may enjoy. So it gives you a broader reach. And I think the benefit of it is that you're not oblivious to one side of the argument. So the kind of heavier technical side or the business side of it, you get a balanced approach. So you could be, like Roisin launching her own company, or you could be even like myself who just works on a client side, but understands the back end. So it gives you that kind of good balance approach. And one other question as well is, what does BS do more, the business side or the technical side, or is it quite balanced? So even Emer, from your own perspective, what do you think?
I think it's quite balanced. So you get the kind of modules in college where you look at your marketing, your, the kind of theory-based stuff. On the business side, we did a bit of statistics, but then you also have the modules where you look at the databases, a little bit of coding, but you're not expected to have any experience in those areas. It's all taught from the ground up. So it's pretty much 50-50. And the best thing to kind of showcase what the course is about is the final year project. So in the final year project, you're expected to build an application or a website, but it's not just about the coding. It's actually about coming up with the idea, planning it, getting your features, and it's all the background work as well. So within BIS, you do get that mix of both sides. You learn how to be the person planning the app and marketing it, but you also learn to be what's going on in the background too. So you definitely get that split 50-50 between the both.
Yeah, I think so. One of the last questions is from Zainab, saying, amazing event. Thank you for all sharing your experiences. Wishing you all very success. My question is around documents and what your career should look like in comparison to CV or others. So I think this is referring to your CV and other type of documents. And this kind of points to your points there around LinkedIn. So I'm a big guy on LinkedIn, use the platform every day for over a year. And what I always like to say is that my CV would mirror what's on LinkedIn, because if you're building out a great CV, it's fantastic, but it's a cold document. It sits over here. I'd put up everything on LinkedIn, have your personal profile built out. So as Sarah mentioned, hiring managers, recruiters, if you're looking for roles, it's pretty much inbound opportunities. So I think if people are focused on their CV, get up on LinkedIn. If you're not getting inbound opportunities, you can adjust and make some changes. Cool. So any other thoughts, guys? I know we're just gone past 2 o'clock, but does anyone have any last final remarks? Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So guys, I would say massive thank you to everyone for listening and keeping to the very end. Everyone stayed to the very end, so I really appreciate that. Hopefully everyone learned a lot. And thank you to Emer, Roisin, Ciara, Sarah, Stephen, everyone, Jeremy as well, for setting things up. I really appreciate it, and wish you all the very best.
That's fantastic, folks. Really enjoyed it. Well done.
Thanks, guys. All the best. Take care.
Great. See you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.